Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on my favorite truck, and that's Ugly Truck. It's a 2000 Chevy Silverado 1500 extended cab short box two-wheel drive. From the outside it looks pretty unassuming and I'm kind of going for a sleeper look, but under the hood is where it's different. I swapped in an 8.1 liter big block and it's turbocharged, and that's the project that we're going to be working on today. Last time you guys saw this truck, I installed the intercooler. It's a 3-inch Trick Turbo, a monster intercooler, and the inlets and outlets, they're just above the bottom of the bumper. But I need to connect the intercooler to the compressor on the turbo, and then ultimately up to the inlet on the engine. I've got a bunch of 3-inch and 3.5-inch pipe, but it is kind of a tight fit because the big block, it does take up a lot of space under the hood. But I've got a welder, I've got some tube, and I've got some time. So let's get to it. Well, at first I thought the passenger side pipe was going to be a walk in the park and it would just fall into place, but it's just one of those days. Let me show you what I mean. I started out by installing the elbow onto the end of the compressor, no problem there, and then I cut a 3-inch 180 in half and I stuck one end onto the compressor and the other end way down there onto the intercooler, and it lines up really nicely with just a 3-inch gap in the middle that I could easily fill in with just another straight section of pipe. But then it dawned on me I'm missing something, well, pretty dang important right now, and that's the cooling fans. You guys have been asking me in the comments for some time now, are you going to do an electric fan conversion on this truck? And yeah, I've always planned on doing it. In fact, I just had the mechanical fan on there with no shroud and it cooled the truck okay, just because it was a temporary solution because I didn't want to spend the money on the electric cooling fans way back when I did the swap because we're about to move and a whole bunch of other reasons. So I was about to finalize this one passenger side pipe, and then I realized, well, obviously I'm forgetting the cooling fans. So I went online and I kind of realized that they stick out a little bit farther than I was originally aware. So before I finalize any of the intercooler pipes, well, I need to get some cooling fans mounted up the truck. I got to spend some more money. But luckily, there is a junkyard just a few miles down the road from me. I looked them up online, and they got a bunch of these cooling fans from the later model trucks, and they have them for less than $100 for the assembly. So we're off to the junkyard. It's the next morning and I'm headed off to the junkyard, so I figured real quick I'd go over what it takes to convert your Silverado over to electric fans. Starting in 2005, just about all Silverado 1500s, you know, the SUVs, Yukons, Denali's, Suburbans, and all that good stuff, as far as I know, all the 1500s did come with the electric cooling fans, and it was a whole assembly with a shroud, 2 fans, and the whole deal. Now, the earlier trucks, I have a 2000, it came from the factory with a 28-inch wide radiator. And to use the electric cooling fans from the factory, you'll need the wider 34-inch radiator. Luckily, I already converted to the wide radiator when I did the 8.1 swap a little bit earlier this spring. But if you have the narrow one, well, you need to do the conversion because the cooling fans actually mount up to the radiator. So today I'm just getting the cooling fans and the harness. You can get that from the junkyard if you want, but it takes a lot of work, and you know, the junkyard guys, they probably won't want to do it for you. And I don't have any pull-aparts near me right now, so I'll probably get the harness from, like, say, Nelson Performance. I think On3 Performance also has a electric fan harness that'll go into the computer, so it'll all be controlled by the computer and it'll all work, you know, just like it would from the factory. But for today, all I'm going to grab is just the fans. So one of my absolute favorite things to do is walk around junkyards because I just see so much potential in all these old projects. You know, you've got old trucks you can salvage parts from, old cars. It's just a whole lot of fun, a whole lot of opportunity. Look at that. There's an avalanche. I think those are kind of cool. All right, I'm back from the junkyard and I'm happy with my purchase, but you just wait, that'll change in a second. Here's what I grabbed though. It's an electric cooling fan assembly from an 09 Silverado 1500. And this truck did have the heavy duty cooling or the towing package, which gives it a 9-blade fan over there and a 7-blade fan right here. Now the only thing I'm gonna have to change, or had to change rather, is because I did an 8.1 swap, my lower radiator hose interfered with a mounting tab that was right there. It kind of looked like that, it stuck up, it had a little metal clip on there, but I just hacked it off, no big deal, it doesn't hurt the structure of the fan, and it allows the radiator hose to clear without rubbing through. But if you're doing this conversion on a half-ton Silverado, or well, I guess any Silverado with an LS motor, the lower radiator hose was already designed to fit with that type of fan shroud, so no trimming required. Now the best part about this whole deal is the whole thing only cost me like 85 bucks with sales tax. So that's great because the new ones online, they go for like $150 or even up to $300 depending on which one you grab. So let's throw it in. There are certain times when I just love using stock parts because all the engineering is already done and they fit, well, like a factory part should. And the cooling fan is a perfect example of that. Even on this 2000 model year truck, the upper bolt holes are already tapped in the upper core support and it just falls into place. It clips onto the radiator kind of right down there, and there's 2 more rubber mounts that go, well, down far below. You can't actually see them right now. But there is one pretty big problem with this cooling fan. It's going to keep the truck nice and cool, that's no problem, it's shrouded properly, but it is really, really big and it doesn't leave me enough space to run the cooling or the charge tubes how I wanted to. Here's the deal. Originally, I wanted to come off the compressor and go through that space kind of down there to the intercooler and then come back up on the opposite side over here. But check it out, there's just not enough space. I mean, I want to use a 3.5-inch pipe, but I don't even have enough room to get a 3-inch pipe in there. So I'm going to have to come up with a new plan, and I kind of started looking at it, and here's what I think is going to work. Instead of coming off to the inside of the frame rail with a first charge pipe, I'm actually going to go on the outside of the frame rail. I kind of mocked up the inner fender, and there's a nice space that'll be left right in front of the sway bar where I can go kind of down and then hook it in through the frame, and I'll have plenty of room. It won't hurt my ground clearance any because the frame is actually up above the bumper. And then I can hook the driver's side pipe, actually closer to the passenger side now, through that space right there where I was going to originally run off the compressor. And then I'll just kind of have to hook it up at a nice gradual angle and then stick it into the front of the motor. So it's a lot more work than I originally wanted to do, but I'm glad I remembered the cooling fan because I would have had to start all over basically from scratch if I would have continued down the path I originally set out on. Now that's just part of building trucks. A lot of times you kind of have to scrap your original plan, but in the long run, this is going to be a much better plan. I would much rather have these really good high flow cooling fans than maybe a small, slim aftermarket fan. You know, I've seen them, they mount directly to the radiator core. I just don't love how that works. Would it work? Yeah, probably, but I hate running those plastic zip tie thingies through the core on the radiator. And then there's other electric fans like the Ford Taurus fans I know guys use. There's probably a million different ways that I could have done this, but like I said, this is one of the situations where I want to use a factory part. That's what I'm going to do. And if it takes me a little bit more work on the back end, well, that's all right. We're going to make it happen. Anybody out there got a bandsaw they want to give away? I am never going to claim to be the world's best welder. In fact, I'd say I am a long, long way off that mark. And I'll be honest, I struggled a lot with this cast aluminum piece. I always try to be upfront with you guys and kind of show you, like I say, every step along the way. And this one, well, this did take a couple of steps. And honestly, I actually welded it like 2 times. I made a pass on it and I was really, really unhappy with it. So I ground it off and I was just gonna leave it, but I kind of stuck with it and I said, you know what? I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna give it another shot. I played around with a lot of different settings on the welder. At first I was running at a higher AC frequency, 110, 120 hertz. And from what I understand, that gives you a lot better penetration. But also I think, if I'm understanding correctly what I read online, I think that also, because it penetrates deeper into the cast, it also brings up some of those impurities that are down inside of cast aluminum. That's just kind of a natural process. Cast aluminum is a little bit harder to weld. Now, by no means am I proud of what it looks like, because I mean, I've got pretty high standards for myself. I want to keep practicing and get a lot better at welding aluminum than I am right now. But what I think my major mistake was, I was welding this last night for the first time, and I only had about 10 or 12 CFH on the argon. And it just kept bubbling up. It kept looking really, really nasty on the surface. So I didn't even think about the gas flow. I kept messing around with other settings, balance and frequency, trying to get it to clean a little bit more, when I think I got my fingers crossed all along, I just didn't have enough gas flow to shield that molten puddle. So like I said, I've got it sort of kind of dialed in. I've never been a huge fan of welding cast. And like I said, I am not proud of how this looks. In fact, I tried welding on the inside and I'm not going to show you guys because of how nasty it is. But anyway, I've got the compressor outlet hose adapter all taken care of. It's at about a 12 or I think about a 15-degree angle. And so now that I've got that taken care of, all I've got to do is attach it to the compressor outlet, build the tube, and we're well on our way. So here's a question for all of you actual welders out there. Does it make a difference? And if it does, what's your preference on a tungsten for an inverter-based machine running AC to weld aluminum? I've been having fits all morning trying to chase this thing, and it's just been giving me problem after problem. Basically what would happen is I'd be welding along and the arc would seem okay, not perfect by any means, but then just all of a sudden it would like start bubbling up and have this really awful looking slag or crap or dirt or something like kind of bubble up to the top, and it would never go away. And I clean the surfaces really, really well. I use acetone, I sand everything down as smooth as I possibly can to try to remove any contaminants from this aluminum. But still, it would give me these fits and it would bubble up and it would ruin the weld, and the only way I could fix it is to stop, let it cool down a little bit, sand it smooth, and then weld over the top again. But then even so, it would still sometimes bubble up, and I had to do a couple passes. And I'm like, I swear I can weld aluminum better than this. I mean, I'm not an expert by any means, but I'm like, I just couldn't figure it out. But then I switched to tungstens. For the longest time, I was running these right here. They're called a hybrid tungsten. And it says right on there, one tungsten, no limits, all metals, all machines. And mostly I do stainless, so this is probably the first time that I was actually welding aluminum with that particular type of tungsten. And I couldn't figure it out, so I decided to switch. I had one serrated tungsten sitting around, so I swapped that over, and it made a pretty significant difference. I mean, this is the weld with the serrated tungsten right there, and I know it's not perfect at this point. It's just kind of up to the skill of the operator, but I'm like, this is what I would expect to see, not that. I mean, this is kind of nasty looking, and I did wire brush it down after the fact, but this is right off the torch, as they say. So yeah, if you're a welder, and if you actually know this is an inverter machine, doesn't make a difference on the tungsten. The manual actually suggests using a lanthanated tungsten for pretty much everything. So I am going to order some lanthanated tungsten, but if you know what's going on, or if you have any tips or suggestions, let me know, please, because, well, I need all the help I can get when it comes to welding aluminum. But anyway, all that aside, I've got the passenger side charge pipe complete, and it's ready to go back on the truck. It's getting closer and closer to looking like a complete truck. I did have to throw in the inner fender liner just to kind of double check that I've got plenty of clearance around everything. And as you can see, you know, the tube fits great. Clearance on that side, clearance against the radiator hose. And the best part is, even though I did run the charge pipe underneath and outside of the frame rail, I didn't lose any ground clearance. It does stick above the bottom of the bumper. I think I got like an extra inch to inch and a half of room. So we're good there. I know this fab work stuff, it does take a long time. This project probably seems like it's dragging out. I know it does kind of to me, but that's because we're building everything from scratch. I mean, a manifold, a crossover pipe, all the charge pipes, the wastegate routing, all of it is just custom fab work that takes time. And there's a lot of nice tools that I don't have that would make life a little bit easier, but I'm not complaining. I'm having a blast. This is so cool to be able to build a truck like this in my own garage. Now, in terms of fab work left to do, the list is getting pretty short, but I've got to build a downpipe. I'm going to connect a 4-inch downpipe on the back of the turbo and snake it kind of through the frame rail there. I need to recirculate the wastegate into the downpipe. I'm going to build the driver's side charge pipe, but I still have to buy a little bit tighter bend for this throttle body here, because it's going to have to come back and then loop down and kind of through that way. But that's a project for another day. And after I get all the fab work done, then it's just the tuning related stuff, you know, bigger injectors, a bigger fuel pump, you know, map sensor, inlet air temp sensor, a few things like that. Obviously, we got to get it tuned, and I hope to make that all happen by the end of 2020. One other thing I want to help happen by the end of 2020 is I want to get this channel to 30,000 subscribers. And I know we can do it, but I do need your help. So like and subscribe if you haven't already. My name's LT. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next upload.